verdad está en la rama de tu corazón.
Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Talofa, buenas tardes. And to all of San Francisco, to the people that are here, we are excited and very, very, very looking forward to this meaningful conversation. Thank you for joining us here today at Brava. We are in the heart of the Mission District. And so we're welcoming everyone that's joining us live on Facebook and also here, the audience that is with us today. This is part of a series called Tres Generaciones, Tres Voces, the series that the RAMA Blueprints Podcast produces. We're proud to present this evening's community dialogue, a critical conversation intended to claim space and honor history. As we navigate the most turbulent and challenging times under this current fascist administration, we at the RAMA Blueprints are humbled by this opportunity to recognize and uplift the people of these communities. Today, we honor the Pacific Islander Vasa community, Pacifica community, its powerful emergence, a testament to their resilience, and a beacon for hope for generations to come. The Vasa signifies the paternal side of the family or lineage, a fundamental pillar, an identity, and connection to heritage in many community Pacific Islanders. The Rise is a profound triumph that celebrates the community's strength and successes as they proudly stand on the foundation of their strong indigenous traditions, affirming that every voice matters and every community has the right to tell its own story. Tonight, we delve into the theme from invisibility to visibility, the rise of the Vasa community in San Francisco. For generations, the Vasa community, including those of Samoan, Tongan, Fijian, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islanders who have built and contributed to the Vasa history of San Francisco, often operating just beneath the surface of the mainstream narrative. Rooted in San Francisco since World War II, this community formed a historic settlement in the southeast, concentrated in neighborhoods like Viz Valley and Sunnydale. The historical reality of the population of San Francisco is estimated at 6,000 Samoans in the 70s and 80s, which was severely undercounted because of the census. This systemic underrepresentation led to inadequate funding for housing, health, education, and the city's response remained minimal. To address this massive service gap and formally advocate for its people, the community elders and leaders established the nonprofit in 1972, Samoa Moa Samoa, the first Pacific Islander nonprofit in San Francisco's Viz Valley. It was established to work with the government to assist newly immigrated Samoans. In the early 2000s, to erase invisibility and silence, Pacific Islander student activists, including the United States-born, raised third and fourth generations, pushed the ethnic data disaggregation from the broader Asian and Pacific Islander API category. This change was subsequently reflected in 2000 in the US Census, officially marking the start of a process to combat the invisibility. That mask served economic, socioeconomic, and health disparities within the Pacific Islander community, thus allowing for targeted resources and programs. In 2003, All Islanders Gathering as One, AIGA, was established and mobilized around a state budget crisis in 2000. Their names itself reflects a long-standing desire for unity among the diverse Pacific Islander populations in the Bay Area, a goal that was relevant long before the recent push for the former cultural district. The push to collect much more detailed facts and numbers about each distinct Pacific Islander group is still happening today. Folks don't want to be just counted as one big group anymore. Each island has its own story. The significant rise of the Samoan and Pacific Islander community in San Francisco is underpinned by a profound and historical solidarity with the Latino community. Key leaders like Pilisala, Sulu Palega, Patsy Lito, and numerous others have paved the path towards visibility and community empowerment. The Real Alternatives program in the late 80s through the 90s marked an important political era with John Nauer, also known as Uncle John, and Uncle Mitch Salazar, rest in peace, worked together to strategize and mobilize the Pacific Island community with social service interventions, which advanced both the civic empowerment and the overall well-being of community. This foundational relationship was critically revisited and reactivated during the COVID-19 pandemic, leading to the San Francisco Latino Task Force, formally partnering with the Pacific Islander community in 21 to establish the Pacific Islander Resource Hut. The role of students and invisibility can also be traced back to 1968. Imagine that, when San Francisco State University students went on strike known as the Third World Liberation Strike. It created the foundation for ethnic studies programs that would later inspire specific curricula for Pacific Islander students decades later. In 2003, the Williams Act, which was settled. It was a class action lawsuit filed by the ACLU against the state of California and played an important role in advancing educational equity for Pacific Islander students and families across California in nearly 2,400 schools. This marks the Vasa significant progress through the statewide public policy. In 2007 and 2009, City College of San Francisco introduces the first Pacific Islander Studies course for all students following a student protest. In 2020, SFUSD Board of Supervisors approved the Fa'a Samoa Education Board, the Fa'a Samoa Initiative, which was not the result of a single etiquette, but rather the culmination of years of advocacy from the Samoan community and the dedicated efforts of key visionary leaders within SFUSD. In 21, the Pacific Islander Community Hub, known as the HUT, officially opens its doors in the Bayview neighborhood of San Francisco. And in 22, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors unanimously approved the Pacific Islander Cultural District, which made the PICD the first such recognized district in the United States and the 10th Cultural District in San Francisco. This ongoing effort was and is led by generations of dedicated advocates, leaders, and community members. It is what brings us to this pivotal moment tonight. Over the next 90 minutes, we will hear from the visionaries, these visionaries on stage, who made this moment possible. These are the indispensable voices you will hear from tonight. They're not just here to share their story, but they're here to share history, to inspire the future and motivate and inspire future generations. So I'd like to welcome our esteemed guest. To our right, we have what we call the generational elder now, she's a young elder, Gaynor Siataga, strong, charismatic, seasoned warrior, and has a history of being involved for over 25 years. Gaynor is an activist, and she is a survivor of immense trauma, including a history of gang involvement, addiction, and violence. And for 25 years, she's fought to bring visibility to her community. Through these experiences, she has transformed herself, but has become an advocate, channeling them into her work, known for bridging strategic vision with tactical execution, and a key visionary, and is the driving force behind the Pacific Islander Cultural District and SALT. Gaynor is a true community warrior, and she is currently employed as a social worker associate at UCSF with the Wraparound Project. Welcome, Gaynor. Also with us is Mahina. Ana is a community emerging leader She has been doing this kind of work for over 15 years in human services and advocacy work. She is a Tongan Pacific Islander activist, proud daughter of Tongan immigrants, a devoted mother and wife, and a passionate community leader. She is the founder and director of the San Francisco Tongan Rise Up, also known as SF True. Her work includes serving on the San Francisco Unified School District Parent Advocacy Ad Council, where she collaborates with educators to address the unique challenges faced by Pacific Islander students, which consequently leads to the founding of the Pacific Islander Parent Advocacy Group, Matua, and its oversight of the Fa'a Samoan Initiative, FASI. Welcome, Ana. And last but not least, we have Tino, also Tino Felise, a Samoan community advocate, leader, and director of programs at SCDC, Samoan Community Development Center in San Francisco. For over 18 years, he has dedicated his work to serve the Pacifica community through a wide range of programs and services that support individuals and families from early childhood through adulthood. He has coordinated many of SCDC's cornerstone programs, including the Strengthening Family programs, which helps families and youth build stronger relationships, and initiatives that empower in-risk youth to create brighter futures for themselves and their families. Welcome to all of our guests. Tonight's discussion will be dedicated to the memory of Alberto Rangel, Ricardo El Tigre Peña, Auntie Nani Wilson, Queen John Elisha Ena, and Richard Talavera. Rest in power. So let's get started with this discussion. Just so you all know, we ask the panelists a question that they can ponder, think about, and share their wisdom with us. So here's the question, and they're all going to reflect for about 3 to 4 minutes to get the dialogue started. The question is, Tino, reflect on a time when you felt invisible as a Vasa community member, and how did you decide to respond to in the name of visibility? Tino.
Thank you. So for me, my experience in the community was when I was a case manager and I was going to Thurgood Marshall High School. And we were working with our youth up there and, just doing one-on-one check-ins, making sure that everything's good with them, but also academically too. When I was looking at some of the data from some of the school district, everything was API. Everything was all up and up. The percentage was 80, 70, 80%. So you couldn't really tell where our PI folks were. So when you're trying to disaggregate the data, then you've seen the gaps. A was the one that had the 70, 80%. PI, we're still lower than almost 30%. So academically and in attendance-wise, we're actually in low categories, but we weren't seen because the data wasn't showing a lot of what our PI kids going through. So when I seen that and asking for the school sites to see if they kind of get just for that school, just Thurgood Marshall, some of the counselors and vice principals at the time, they were actually kind of helping me out, making sure I get the correct data for them to make sure that, we were visible. Because, again, for me, being there and trying to help support these kids and the families, not knowing the real correct data that, they're just thinking that, oh, API, you're all good, but not really. In that sense, I was wanting to make sure that our kids and our families were supported and getting the correct information and also how to get the support that they needed during that time. So again, like for me in that space, just doing the work. That was where I kind of seen our invisibility at not showing up in the data. Another instance was even just going to a meeting at the mayor's office. You already know how that is. Big table, every seats all around. So when I first went, and that was my first time, just again, our PI folks were humble, so we'll sit at the end. So again, they didn't, when I seen everybody coming to the table, and there's no knock on everybody else. I was just watching and observing, trying to make sure, I'm at the right spot. But seeing everybody, there was no PIs at that table. So again, that made me think, okay, what do we have to do to continue to be at that table? Because again, what I was thinking is I wanted to make sure that we do have a seat at the table and they hear our voices. We're not just in the background, again, just sitting in a meeting, checking the box, just listening. So for me, that kind of helped me understand that I need to be out there and speak up, especially in spaces like that. Because if I don't speak up, that means I'm not speaking. So I wanted to make sure that every time I'm going to a meeting, I'm sitting at the table. Now, now like today is, like I say too, is we got to sit at the table. We're not on the menu. That's one of the things too that I always want to keep in mind, and making sure that anytime any Pacifica person is in spaces, we belong in them spaces. So don't think we don't. We do belong in those spaces. That's one thing I want to make sure that purposeful of or in those spaces that we do speak up. We are humble at heart. We're quiet. When we speak, we roar. We like lions, lioness or whatnot. But I just want to make sure that we understand that we have a voice, and we're going to continue to share our voice with the community and also everybody else that wants to continue to support us as a Pacifica community.
Thank you for that answer. Beautiful answer. Thank you. Anna, what are your thoughts?
Well, malolele, everyone. It started back, I think, in third grade when I was helping my mom fill out the emergency contact forms. And the invisibility was, there was no checkbox that said Tonga, that said Pacific Islander. And I think that's where the advocacy started from, was being that translator for my mom at an early age and seeing how we could change the narrative because we were the first generations here in America. It's also the part where it says,
Okay.
it's your language spoken at home. And often it just says English or Spanish, and that was it. No one asked, is there another other box that you can check and put Tongan or Samoan or Fijian? So that's where the invisibility started, was just being a kid helping my immigrant mom fill out forms. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Like Darren said, it does stir up emotion, right? Because we want to hear that story that brought not only yourself but others to visit to this place today. So thank you for sharing that. Gaynor?
What's the question?
Reflect on a time when you felt invisible as a Vasa community member, and how did you decide to respond to this, to bring it forward to visibility?
I think for me personally, I felt that as a person from the Vasa community, I was invisible all my life. And, or majority of my life. Back to, what my sister Anna was sharing, when I was in elementary, all the way up to from kindergarten to first grade, second grade, and third, I was put straight into Spanish class and Spanish speaking class, and went to ESL. And it wasn't until I think I got into a fight, one of the many, my mother was called to come over, and they went to go get me from ESL class. And my mom says, what is my daughter doing in ESL class? She speaks English, right? And that was the first that I can remember internally in my own Vasa community, because we're considered Afakasi or half-breed. I felt invisible too. And there was always this constant, like, I am one of you, and then growing up, in the Mission, and then the Bayview, and just growing up in a wonderful city like, San Francisco. What I am very proud of is that we're diverse. I really didn't care what you were. You're cool, I'm cool. And that's always been our motto. So it wasn't so much about race, it's just, getting together and finding folks that just accepted you for who you were, and embraced you with love and compassion. And that's who I, rode with. But as I was growing up, in the mission, and in the Bayview and Viz Valley, I notice my people. I know we exist. I mean, you can't say like 5 of us polys in a room, you can't see us. I mean, you can see us, right? It looks like 20. But, how can everyone else see us? And so, what I did about it was we started hitting data. We started getting together. We started seeing our ancestors, like my grandmother, Anaruweta Heather, was one of the members of Samoa, which was a lot of our elders and seniors that put that, group together to try to provide a better future for us in America, but here in San Francisco. And so being exposed to that, although there was recognized a lot in our Samoan affairs, one of our schools
That's right.
with Auntie Fia and, Pat and them, we know we existed, but no one else did. And so, now this is what I'm doing. This is what we are all doing. We're just taking that work and we're continuing to push it forward, but you're going to see us, and so I feel that at this point, that's what I'm doing to be visible, but not for me. It's for our generations, after us, so that they have that solid foundation to where you don't have to struggle to try to be seen. You can see us now. So
Oh, thank you. Let's give them all like a big hand for the beautiful answer. I was reflecting with these guys backstage, in the green room, as we call it in the theater world. And we were talking about kind of my first experiences with the Pacific Islander community. And I know, in the audience, is Rovan San Miguel. I worked with her at RAP. Also want to acknowledge that your mom is here. So, Gaynor, I want to make sure we say that.
my
too.
mom and my sister
And
and
your
my
sister.
cousins
Okay,
and
all right.
my aunties
Time
and my
out,
uncles.
time out.
And my medical
time out.
director from Wraparound.
Okay. So, but, first coming to RAP is like I was incredibly blessed to work with the Samoan community. And now in this, where we're at now, and hearing the terminology, that's the language, it reminds me of just the sacredness of that. And one of the things that we're learning is the word Vasa, right? We hear it. And in talking with John Nauer some time ago, he said, we are the people of the Vasa, right? And I was going to ask Anna if she could at least elaborate a little bit for the audience and for the people that are listening, through the internet. Could you elaborate on the meaning of Vasa? And how does the concept of the sacred space, to both of you and all of us that are up here, guide the day-to-day operations of the mission of the Pacific Islander community? So what is the Vasa?
So Vasa is Va meaning the space and Sa meaning sacred. And what was the other part? Sorry.
How do you integrate it into, the work that you're of day to day with, like, for example, the work you do? How is it part of it?
So the Vasa is everything that is the mana of the work that we do. Everything that we've done so far is share the knowledge or making sure that the consciousness of the Vasa is out there for everyone to understand. It is also sharing our indigenous language, our practice, and letting everyone know who we are and where we're coming from and where we're going. And Vasa is the whole entire ocean. And people say, like, we are divided by the water. We are not divided by the water. We are united by the water in everything that it comes with. And when we talk about salt is actually when you cry, there's salt in your water, that's your tears. In the ocean is not a body of water without salt that makes the ocean. So when we talk about salt, we talk about the ocean, we talk about Vasa. It is everything that reflects the people of the ocean that also unites with everyone else who touches that water as well. So we want to make sure that we're on those sacred spaces with each other and not just for ourselves.
Thank you for that answer. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, and just to add to like Vasa, but also too like for me, like when I think of Va or Tel Deva is nurturing the space or the sacred space between each other and the relationships that we want to continue to build, with our community, Pacifica community, or at large community. And that's one thing that we want to continue to pride ourselves on, is the partnership and relationship, but uplifting each other and supporting each other in this work, to continue to tell Liva or Vasa too, like just to make sure that we continue to build that space between us. Any space that we step into, any relationship that we want to continue to build and uplift, that that's what you want to continue to nurture it. Something that we want to do as Samoan, as Pacifica people within San Francisco, and continue to share, our cultural practices and our knowledge and our methods of how we do things, in our culture. And that's one thing that I really pride ourselves on, is continue to build and nurture the relationships that we hold together. And that's how we can continue to, make a better future for our communities, not just the Pacifica community, but the community at large, even in San Francisco. I want to continue to spread, our knowledge and our culture with everybody that we come in contact with, and continue to learn from their own culture as well. Right. So it should be one. It shouldn't be one way. It always should be back and forth to street where we're all learning.
Thank you for that explanation. And so I think it's really important that we not clarify, but that we use the terminology of the sacred space, right? I know we are definitely learning a lot as we're working on this project with you all. So, obviously there has been the road to advocacy, right? And what led the road to advocacy, when I mentioned in 1972 the Samoa project, I know we were going to give Tino some time to be able to talk a little bit about the journey to that, which then led to the development of SCDC, which is one of the first nonprofit organizations that has a long, long history. And from there, then, Gaynor, are you going to bring us to speed as far as some of the way you've navigated, the city and its bureaucracies, and some of the accomplishments and some of the challenges? So let's start with you. Hey, I was trying to be polite, okay? Let's go ahead.
Thank you, Socorro.
Yeah.
For like you said, in 1972, Samoa was created or founded. Again, they were helping all our families transitioning from the islands, but also too with helping our seniors and our elders at the time. And I remember or recall that they were actually helping some of our high school students graduate during that time and getting them registered or even into schools. So that was a big piece that I was learning from our own SCDC history. And come 91, I think that's when it transitioned to the Samoan Community Development Center. And that's when we didn't have a space yet. I think it was in 97 that they got the space.
And where was the space at? Where was it located at?
Off of Tennessee Street, right?
Okay.
That was Samoa, and then we moved to the old John McLaren building at 2055 Sunnydale. So SCDC's been there ever since for over, now I can think about over 30 years. And, again, came out of a youth program, an elder program, a senior program at the time. And we kept both in an SCDC after our Pacific Islander Youth Alliance, after 1 year, kind of catalyst for all the other programs that came about within SCDC. So 97 was the first PIY summer program. And then from there on, we just continued to this day.
How long has the organization been in existence now?
So next year, 20 or 34 years, next year will be 35 years.
Oh, it's a long time, right?
Sorry, my math was mathing, but I think, 97 or 98, that was the first. Yeah, summer is like 25, what?
So I know SCDC specifically works with a lot of different type of programming, but I wanted to focus a little bit about the outreach that SCDC does around, to destigmatize some of the issues around mental health, and also how you've been able to motivate youth and families to seek, therapy, mental health services. You want to address that?
Yeah. Back in, I want to say, and I know she's in the room, around 2011, 2012, Dr. Patsy had a conversation with one of our partners, which is RAMS, Richmond Area Mental Services, about mental health, and they were wondering if we wanted to come in and do mental health within the PI community. know Dr. Patsy was really like, she wanted to do that because that was something that we didn't have. That was a gap within our community that we wanted to continue to support our community with. And so, we hired on, I forgot the first coordinator, but I know the second coordinator was Ursula Ann Siataga, so that's Gaynor's sister. So she came in and actually helped out and launched the program as well with Dr. Patsy and other folks that was there at the table. And, we were just scratching the surface at the time, back in 2011, 2012, about mental health and just continue to shed light on it, where I know it was a lot of stigma around mental health during that time. Like, when you're growing up, when you see certain folks that had mental illness or special needs, that, sometimes our elders or folks didn't understand it. So sometimes what I remember is like, oh, don't go by that kid. You might catch it what that kid got. But you didn't know that it's a mental health issue or this disability that they had, where we weren't educated at the time. And that's one thing that we want to do, is educate our community on mental health, and also not look at it as a negative, as a stigma, but also how can we support and help. So that's what Dr. Patsy did. And Ursula, they actually launched the Samoan Wellness Initiative within SCDC. And from there on, we wanted to continue to build different community spaces and workshops, Cafe Wellness to Siva for Wellness, where you continue to do cultural movements and, for our elders, our seniors, but also our kids joined in and they like those type of activities too. And also just to make sure that, folks are heard. I think for us, we just continue to go through the work and not talk to anybody about, what we're going through. And that's no knock on our generations that was before us in the past, but that was just how they was living. And the thing is, we learned as the generations kept going, that we learned that, hey, we got to open up and talk to people, or, find somebody to talk to make sure that we're okay.
Right.
Because if we're in this community work, we got to make sure that we're okay. Because what I always taught was, like, hurt people can't help other hurt people. You always hurt more people when you hurt. So that was one thing, is the healing started. And we started getting in a lot of more folks coming into workshops and learning about mental health, and also mental health first aider. I think that was Ursula and Gaynor and Dr. Patsy that brought that in too during that time for our community. I think there was about 40 people that got certified during that time. So that's when we kind of started, continue to build as a community. And now, like you said, like SCDC, we have 2 certified clinicians now and a licensed clinician.
Wow.
So,
Right on.
with Dr. Patsy Tito leading the way for us, and also Anthony Vi, that's actually a clinician on site with us at SCDC. And you got a lot of folks that are in the master's programs. So we got a lot of more support coming for our community, our Pacifica community, to make sure and ensure that, our folks are taken care of, especially for the future. So I know we wanted to make sure. And one of the things too, like one of the the wellness coordinators in the schools was telling me that, like, he's just learning about SCDC and all the mental health services, but also who's in the master's program. He's like, what are y'all doing? Are y'all like a breeding ground for MSWs now? And I'm like, hey, we trying to do what we can do. And there's a lot of folks in this room that I can see that are in social work and therapists and clinicians. And then some of them are folks that, like, we looked at and even encouraged us to continue this journey, our educational journey, but also helping the community out with the hard work and making sure that, we continue to take care of each other. And our purpose of what God put us on this earth for is just to continue to support and shed love and joy with everybody, but also to share our culture.
Right on.
No, that was a lot. Sorry, Socorro.
That's okay. I was just sitting here. I was remembering you in the CRN meetings. Remember those meetings? Yeah, that's kind of where I first met Tino, and
He was 14.
yeah, and just watching your involvement, it's very, very beautiful to see, and to recognize that the acknowledgement for the LCSW work and mental health work, and to get our people, all of our people, right, to not feel that it's, you're going to be judged. There's such a stigma around, even in the Latino community. Folks are still not really ready to make that jump, not recognizing how it is important to help them. Along the terms of advocacy and, work, I know, Gaynor, you've been, in the throes of City Hall, and you've been at that for a long time. Why don't you, talk a little bit about the advocacy work? And I know you've shared with me this word called polytricking, right?
Polytricking.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about what that takes. How do you navigate that? And where currently is the issue or the funding for the the community?
Yeah, that was one, challenge when we're talking about visibility. The thing about, our Vasa community is everybody's been doing the work.
Mm.
We're very community oriented, family oriented, type folks and people. And yet, as everyone was doing the work, whether it was in their own pockets or through church, or just giving back, and stuff, the visibility part was the hardest, especially in a city of San Francisco, or just in society itself, here in the United States. Um, the the privilege that I have was growing up diversely, growing up in, my Latino community, growing up in and with our African American community, our Asians, and growing up that way was learning and observing how they were doing it. And so, I've been really privileged to be in revolutionary and activist type, stuff. And everybody knows I will chain myself to City Hall for anything that, we feel, not just, for justice for all of our people, but at the same time for things like this, resources, services, things that we feel that should have been like just given to us,
Right.
especially because we're already doing the work without the support.
Right.
And so, learning from that was then me knocking down those doors politically, and getting at, our politicians, getting at, folks that would sit there and listen. How to navigate it is I be in their face. So, showing up, asking them, hey, can we meet? I really need to address this. These are some issues that my communities, are sharing and expressing. My communities are suffering. And then, it's crazy because some people think I just went and cried or told a sob story or threatened politicians. I like to say this publicly. I didn't. We noticed that it takes some more work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like data. We needed data, accurate data. We have our PI, and we get lost in that big umbrella of our brothers and sisters of the A. And, they'll say, oh, yeah, the API have the highest, academic like rates.
Right.
But if you look at the PI, we have the highest of the lowest academic. We have the highest of every negative or every, disparity that there is. And so how are we going to make sure or show this? And so, I worked with a lot of our folks, continue to work with Tino, like all these amazing, folks just within our Vasa community, but then also work with all of our other folks, our allies, and I says, hey, I need some help. I need help to extract data. I need help, so from here locally, I reached out to my sister's folks in UCLA, and other university folks, researchers, and said, hey, can you guys help me put this together?
Right.
I'm not a data research FYI, but I knew in 2 weeks I had to sit there with a lack of sleep. I hit the census, try to get their data on the federal level, and after 2 weeks, that was the heartbreaking moment where I myself became woke within my Vasa community. And it really broke my heart because the data showed that we were just the lowest of the low or the highest of the high and all the negative stuff. And so with that, I took it to City Hall. I took it to the Capitol. I took it and sent it to Washington. And I says, this is unheard of. We are at a stage of extinction. You know, the data alone showed we were 30, 50,000 strong, you know, in the 60s and the, you know, 50s, 70s. But then in 2014 to 2019, we became 3,359. And that right there is horrible. And that's when, you know, because I'm a gangster, so I don't cry. But, you know, it brought me to tears. It broke my heart.
Yeah.
And I came to my brothers and sisters, you know, right here and some others that are not here today, and says, hey, you know, I want to do this and I'm going to push this. What I love about my brothers and sisters here, they're like, okay, nobody didn't know. They're just like, okay, whatever Gaynor says that she's going to do. And so we started knocking down those doors. And, you know, we were very blessed with folks that were in office that actually took the time to listen. And when they listened, I didn't stop. And I continued to be on them. That consistency, that persistence, you know, and stuff. And then they said, I figured they did it because they wanted me to be quiet and get out of their face. But honestly, the data, you know, having that paperwork, having like all these things that systems, you know, would listen to, we had to put it in black and white for them to even recognize. And that's how, you know, we was able to navigate that.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for that, doing all that advocacy work. I know that you were mentored by quite a number of folks, and also, you know, where you're at today. I wanted to follow up a little bit about, and I can never, I'm sure we can't just say funding is stable for currently with what's going on, but where does it sit right now around, like, you know, some of the funding for the continued resources that are required to continue to do this advocacy work for the Pacific Islander community?
I'm always going to say to everyone, we have no money. To be honest, like, we are very blessed to have the chump change that we do have. And something Brother Tino mentioned, like, they are very humble people. I'm a little different. I'm humble to an extent. But to be honest, like, even with, you know, budget cuts and stuff, we still get hit the hardest, even with the little chump change that we have.
Right.
So out of the movement that we've created, we did create, you know, the Pacifica, you know, movement, PI movement a few years ago, so that we can also create this platform, you know, that we exist and that we have a voice and that we're here. The contribution is of our ancestors to this city, but also to this country, since we have the highest recruits of military folks, the highest lost, you know, or deaths in military fighting for this nation. You know, we should, you know, have bigger resources and services. And I'm not saying more than anybody else. There should be some equality, you know, and equity. And so with funding, you know, with the movement that we've created, it wasn't enough. So that's why we created the SALT Association. And then it wasn't enough as well. Just everybody knows the dominance of islanders here in the city is Samoan. But if you couldn't recognize us, how could you not see our Tongans, you know, brothers and sisters, our Chamorans, our Fijians, you know, all of these amazing islands. We have 31 nations.
That's right.
You know, and so we are not the only ones, you know, here. And so we had to sit there and open those and educate folks that we are one. The association, you know, we have 29 representation of 31, you know, nations. The other part in that is the different groups of folks that have been doing this work, you know, SCDC, like all of us, like just, you know, in our own expertise,
Right.
you know, supporting and complementing each other, and then going to policies, you know, and you think that's enough, that we should get some funding or something to support this work. Majority of the work that we have all been doing has been pro bono, you know, and so this last budget cut, Unfortunately, although we have made strides in the last, a few years, majority of our groups have now been cut as we are building and as we're,
Right.
trying to move forward. And people think that we have a lot of money because we have 5 policies we steward, or that we have a cultural district. We have $230,000, and the team that we have is just 3,
Right.
some part-time. And then the rest of us are still volunteering.
Right.
So when we talk about funding, we're still at that place where we're bringing miraculous work by the grace of, our Creator, but we still are not supported with fiscal love, like Uncle Mitch would say.
That's right. Yeah, and I think as we move through the conversation, we'll talk a little bit about strategies and a little bit about what is needed. Anna, I know when I first met you, you were at the hub, right? And it was right during the COVID, right after I think the COVID, we were coming there to start this research that we had begun and working with the Pacifica community. But I wanted to ask you, like, your involvement with the Resource Hub, what that experience had been like, and what it's like to continue to be in that leadership role, and talk a little bit about the hub and the hut, and and address some of that.
So in 2019, of course, everyone knows about COVID, but it was a lot of the data, the advocacy that we did collectively. In those data, they showed that there was no data for the Pacific Islanders. And so in 2020, everyone had got money to support each and every one of their groups except for us. They said, wait for the 11th person to die for them to do something about our people.
So 11 Pacific Islander folks.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
For a data that no one has but us. And so I think the researchers, those who have gone before, they get their education to build these things out, volunteering their time to see their elders and making sure that each and every family had food, had financial stability for them during those COVID times. And so that arised our partnership with Latino Task Force to come out with a Pacific Islander resource hut. And in that resource hut, we helped with education, workforce. We were helping with PPE. We were at loans and things like that for everyone to be sustainable during those times. It also brought out a lot that our families were living together. They were coping through the whole COVID, getting sick and still going to work. Helping the children during times where they had to go online. And so that's where the Pacific Islander Resource Hut came about, was with the Latino Task Force lending a hand out and saying, hey, we got money, we can support. And so that's where the Pacific Islander Resource Hut came out of, and it is still going strong today. Because what we recognize is that it didn't take COVID to bring out all of the disparities that we were already going through as humans. It also brought out the smaller of our Pacific Islanders to make that bigger mark in San Francisco. With that being said, it was a lot of moving around, masked up, making sure that everyone was safe, making sure that everyone had food to eat. And it was also, to this day, there are still some folks that may fall in between those cracks. And this was happening before COVID, and it's still happening to today. So having the PI Resource Hut is also a sustainability for the future generations as well.
That's right.
Yep.
Can I add something to
Sure,
the
go ahead. We're
resource hub?
having a conversation here.
So while we were in this movement, to become visible or to get more resources and services, we actually started, doing a lot of work in 2014. In this time, trying to get, a lot of accurate data and building this whole, stuff to navigate through the system and society. Here we already identified a lot of the disparities, and so the one thing we didn't have is what I love about our Samoan Community Development Center SCDC is the fact that we tackled the programming part, my brothers and sisters over there. So we have our senior programming, we have our youth programming, amazing, bringing out 300, 400, 500 youth every summer, but then all year round is consistently working. And still, when we looked at the disparities, there wasn't, a lot of, when we go back to funding, to support even SCDC, which was our only, organization catering to, our Pacifica community, there was more. How could we tackle these, high disparities?
Right.
Housing. We had most of our folks is 70%, 73% live in low income housing. A lot of our folks, we had the highest health disparities, from diabetes to cancer to strokes to, all of this stuff. And yet, if we were supported with funds at the time and had, folks in place, it would have helped to support. So the idea of actually coming up with a resource hut was so that those services to tackle the disparities, can happen. And so we identified the main disparities, housing, assistance, so, public assistance, enrollment, for education, or higher learning, stuff like that. But along our journey, COVID hit.
Right.
And then before the Latino Task Force was created, we already hit the ground in the mission, to start, getting together with UCSF, our amazing AIDS and stuff department, who actually volunteered, those amazing doctors. I have to give credit to them, to say, hey, we're going to come and test. Because when our people were going to try to get tested, they were turned away, and so we came together, worked together with, General Hospital and UCSF, and those doctors said we can volunteer. We got our first little grant from the census to help support. So we started, with 4 testing sites just right here in the mission. I think it's 4 or 5.
Right.
After that, we seen, so a lot of us were volunteering. We'd go, people tested positive. When they tested positive, we started, working with the city to put them up in spaces. Like Anna was saying, there was, communal people. There's like 17, 20 people that live in one household. So when one gets sick, everybody else did too.
Right.
But along that way, was people that were providers were getting sick. So how are they going to, feed themselves? How are they going to pay the bills?
Right.
So I was volunteering. We put signs all around the city. The food hub, became something with, and each person, in the mission was, assigned stuff.
Right.
So Roberta Hernandez with the food hub, us over here with, I had to go and transport to COVID positive patients and stuff, supplies and everything all around the city. And at the same token, we were being hit the highest in the Pacific Islander community and didn't have anything.
Right.
And so, when we did create Latino Task Force, it was only fitting because the whole time we're sharing the resources and the support. And so that continued on to then we were already moving, doing our resource hut with the little funding that we only had $100,000. And so we're like, we're going to tackle this Latino Task Force. Now we're opening hubs everywhere. And so we said, you know what, we need the support because we don't have the money or capacity for that but we were already creating the
Yeah,
hut,
yeah.
right? And so I just have to give a big shout out to that, and it still goes on
good.
today.
That's great. That's excellent. Yeah, that's good. It took that, unfortunately, that tragedy, that pandemic to, kind of maybe awaken a lot of stuff that needed to happen and continue the collaboration of work. So, at this point, we always have a Q&A, and we want to open it up to see if anybody has any questions from the audience. And I think Darren has the microphone. If you have a question,
Yes,
please
right here.
ask it. Say your name, please, and direct the question to one of our panelists.
Hi, my name is Rosa. I'm actually Gaynor's cousin. I have two, a comment and a question. Comment is that I got into community work because of her at 14, 15 years old. So I'm doing it now, and that's where I got, where I'm at right now. But the question is, if you had your grandma here, because I know grandma was really a big person in your life, what's the one thing that you would tell her about the work that you're succeeding in doing right now?
I think of her every day, Uncle Mitch, Jean, a lot of the ancestors that have helped mold me to who I am today. Dr. Akil Bashir, in the public safety realm, he just passed, one of my biggest mentors in that arena. But I would say to my grandma, did I do good? And are you proud? And why are you trying to make me
I'm
cry?
proud of you.
Thank you for that, Gaynor. Is there another question out there? Whoa, Darren.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ursula Siataga, and my question is, there was a point of entry in the political realm that y'all was doing, and I guess I wanted y'all to elaborate it on it, because I think education might have been key in everything, and I noticed that across the board, y'all all, started there to push the work on the entry of the political activism. So I just want to elaborate, because SCDC, they were doing cultural preservation work, academic success work, college access work, right? So, and then on the realm of like building a policy, that's like starting there. You know what I mean? Like, I think if y'all kick that off. Thank you.
Who wants to address it? Want to go ahead, Tina? Or
I mean, we all.
okay, why doesn't everybody respond? Just briefly. So go ahead. Who wants to start? Tino?
Just for me, like Dr. Patsy just putting me in certain positions, and also this Gaynor calling. We got to be at City Hall today, or got to be at the supervisor's office, or this. But I think for us, like for me, that was just my entry into continuing to learn politics or the city politics, or politicking, like Sis Gaynor say. Just understanding like the relationships and the knowledge, but also how we want to advocate. How we want to advocate for our people, and what the needs and the support is of our community. I think just going back, just thinking about that and understanding our purpose of when you go into those like that kind of political arena, to me, understanding like what we're here for and our purpose, and making sure that we share that out and that we're heard and that we're validated. And that's, again, it comes with visibility and just making sure that we need to nurture those relationships. And I think that's one of the things that I learned in the beginning. You need to just listen, understand, but also when you got something to say it. We got to share it. Like I said, if we're not speaking up for ourselves, we're not speaking up for our community. So that's why I want to keep, like I always kept that in mind whenever I'm in spaces like that. I want to make sure that they hear us, that we're seen, and what's the next steps? Not just I'm heard. I want to make sure that you're gonna do something. There's follow up from that too. So,
Gaynor, did you want to address it, or Anna? Anna, why don't you address it?
I think for me, it was the education, going back to being that third grader helping my mom, right? And then it's like coming into SFUSD and my son, the reason why I came to SFUSD was to advocate for my son. And I seen that if my child matter, everyone's child matters to me, because I'm also their auntie, you know? And so we take care of each other's kids. And I think the point of entry for my biggest push for visibility is in SFUSD. It is part of I joined the Parent Advisory Council just on a fluke. And I was like, okay, I'm going to join. They have good lunches or dinner. And I'm like, going to go there and see. And when I stepped into that little space, I also noticed that there was no one that looked like me. And there was no one that could advocate for our babies. And so that's where my advocacy for visibility came from, was being that mom that pushed the issue, that made sure that if that money was for my kid, it is for all of our kids, that we should be there, that I should be a part of this conversation and not having somebody step in to talk about us. And I think that's where the visibility came about, was the education part in the advocacy. And when we had started the collaborative in assault, it was just that. Be there. Be there for yourself. Be there for your kid. And it's not, when I say kid, it's not just my Mikey. It's all of our babies.
All the Mikeys.
All the Mikeys.
All the Mikeys and the Gaynors.
And so, yes, and the Gaynors. Because
The Gaynors need a lot of help.
well, that's why we have to be there.
Right.
And I tell you, I love all my Mikeys and Gaynors because that helps me to feel the pain that they're going through, or the frustration, not the pain, but the frustration that they go through in education. And how can I help ease that pain as a nurturer, as a service provider for him, for all of our babies. But that's where the advocacy came from. It was the education. It was being the mom, being the auntie that goes to make sure, or the bigger sister, to go stand in those places that made much more difference for them. Because it was them, it was our babies that kept me in this work. My baby tell me all the time, Mike will tell me like, Mom, when are you going to retire? I'm going to take over SALT. I'm going to take over Tongans Rights Lab. I tell him, son, this is for you. This is for Kesa. This is for Tuvesi. These are for our babies. It's not for me. This is only the pathway, the consistency that our ancestors have built. And I'm only here to continue the journey.
Right,
And hopefully that the visibility happens tenfold.
Thank you for that answer. Is there another question out there? Oh, there's another one right there.
Hi, my name is Gesa.
Speak a little bit louder.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Gesa. And I have two questions. My first question is, what motivates you guys to keep doing the work that you guys are doing, or like what makes it all worth it? And my second question is, like, in a couple years down, 10, 15, 20 years, what do you hope to see, like, being done for the community? You know, like, what do you hope is accomplished by then for us?
Why don't you take that one, Gaynor, and then we'll move on.
I was just going to say,
we'll
to
move
be
on
alive.
to the next part of the
That's it,
dialogue.
To be alive. But
Go ahead,
got it.
Gaynor.
Baby, what was your question?
What motivates you?
What motivates me, you
Right.
do. You know, our ancestors, the legacy that we're carrying on, you know, not just in our Pacifica community, but all the community ancestors of leaders that have sacrificed, that have fought, you know, for all of us. But what motivates me the most is, you know, the Creator, because I know He has me here today out of my full journey of life for a reason. And, you know, my family, you know, and then, but especially just you, the youth. I feel in my heart that at the end of the day, if we had that cushion or that pillow, or a solid foundation when we were coming up, it could have been different. Maybe I could have been that doctor, like, my doctor, Caitlin Collins out there, or, the lawyer that I wanted to be. But then God always has a purpose for us. And I can't be that, because he's already got my purpose, but maybe you can. What I would love to see in the next 10, 15 years, actually in the next year, is you guys to continue to thrive. As we're holding the space and continuing to build it, that it will be ready for you guys in the next few years to come take your place, to, take over. I always tell you guys, like, I'm ready to retire. Like Tino, like I started very young in this work, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to retire like that, but I would like to fall back and be you guys' number one fans and cheerleader and, your buffer and your red-nosed pit bull, to continue to fight and advocate. But this is all for you guys. So that's what motivates, me and what I would love to see in the next 10, 15 years.
Thank you for that answer. So we're going to move on with the conversation. And thank you guys for answering the questions and thank you to the audience. So, we started talking a little bit about the matua, and I wanted Anna to talk a little bit about why is it so important, and explain to people what matua actually does and how it is, and how is it connected around to the SF True work that you were doing and SF True meaning San Francisco Tongans Rise Up. So can you, kind of enlighten us on that?
Absolutely. So San Francisco Tongans Rise Up, its heart is the kids and the parent advocacy. So matua means in Tongan, in Samoan, in Hawaiian, is matua means elder or parent. And when Matua Advisory came around was in 2019 through the advocacy of having the Whasamoa initiative. It started with Commissioner Molinga, who was the first politician, Samoan PI politician here in San Francisco. And with that, we were supporting the initiative. And because I took that detour to have lunch with the other parents at the Parent Advisory Council and not seeing that there was anyone else there, I said, why don't we have one that all of our parents could be a part of? Because no one knows our culture and other than us, our ways. And that's what it was. And so that's how Matua Advisory came about. And this was already something that Tongans Rise Up had established as this is our niche. I'm going to be the Parent Advisory Council. I'm going to be that parent that shows up at these school board meetings, at these other meetings, not to have dinner, but to go and advocate for our babies. And this started 5 years ago. It's been that long.
Yeah.
It's been that long. And we continue. And when we say consistency and the continuous advocacy for visibility, that's where it's at. Because that's where our babies are more than they are at home. For more than 8 hours, they're at school. So the partnership with San Francisco Unified School District
That's right.
is to make sure, like, if all this list of things that our babies didn't accomplish, how can we do it with the initiative that is the blueprint? Red print. It is the blueprint for our babies that tells them exactly what is needed for our kids to succeed. And also that Tongans Rise Up will always back you up 1,000% with the advocacy of our parents, with the Matua Advisory Council. And I think it's also the alignment of all of our partnerships with our community-based organizations to advocate on all levels, because all of our services are different. All of our programs are different. But collectively, we can make sure that we move in the way that we need to move with our babies
Right.
and not have anybody tell us how to move because of the funding that we never got. But that's a whole different story. But the
She's probably
advocacy,
tricking.
I learned
There's
it from
probably
the best.
funders watching.
I learned it from the best. But absolutely, if no one else was going to do it for our babies, we were. We were all going to do it for
So
our
you,
babies.
you mentioned the Samoa initiative, right? The FASI.
Yes.
And maybe just a little bit about kind of like how the FASI now, and we're talking about some of the first, the dual language program, the language program, and some of the other things that have come, some of the other benchmarks that have been reached and have come out of the FASI. Can you mention the FASI just a little briefly about what that is? I know that Ursula Siataga is in the audience with us today, who's one of the, what do we call her? One of the masterminds behind it, as well as Coach Wiley and other folks that have gotten in the initiative. And I'm glad you mentioned the Commissioner Moliga, but maybe a little bit about what FASI, because I know you guys were just at the school board meeting the other day, the parents, and you presented. I watched it live stream, and I was just so proud of you guys to watch this and to watch you guys present about some of the accomplishments that have already occurred. So tell the audience a little bit about what FASI is.
So the Samoa initiative, again, like with the advocacy and the politricking, we went to policy. So, we have, by the grace of God, have the first policies, not just here, that is recognized locally, but also globally.
That's right.
And so the Samoa initiative was one of our first, I can't take away from the Williams Act, which you read. That's one of our first policies. But then the Samoa initiative, with our first politician ever that we've had in full office, with the Board of Education, Faunga Malinga, we came together as a community. We had SCDC, we had all of us, and we pushed because of the academic and, educational needs that our kids had. And so we went, and I have to give a big shout out to Sanchez. Yes, Mark Sanchez, because he was actually the first one to write up a, I don't know, somebody shaking their head. Anyway, let me just go to what I know. We pushed for this initiative for Samoa, and it was passed. And this right here is most of, the voices and community, or, who took those voices of our people there. And so with that, we fought first for people that look like us to be in positions. And with that, we were able to get a recruiting position within SFUSD. And then Ursula Ann was in that position. And then we continued to fight because we needed more people that look like us, so that our kids, can see that, there are people that look like you. But at the same time, to bring that cultural, relevancy and competence within the educational institutions. And so, recruiting for more teachers, recruiting for more, professors and stuff. And then we didn't stop there. We went and we says we have to have a dual language.
Right.
And so we created, and thanks to Ursula, created a dual language, first ever in the nation, where it's teaching English and Samoan in the pre-K, and then we needed a teacher, so we had Miss Epinesa, and it's still going strong. We have high, enrollments in that. And then the Matua advisory for the parents, and that's also one of the first councils in the educational institution. And then it wasn't enough. We needed a coordinator to represent, and to drive out the initiative's requests. So we all in the community have requests that are in those initiatives for SFUSD and for the commissioners to, honor and to help push. And so they switched Ursula to be that NHPI person, and then we had to have her have an assistant or a coordinator to coordinate that. And so we have Coach Wiley. The greatest thing is, we have Tino and Anna here, and they just presented. We do this annual presentation in front of the Board of Education and the commissioners and the superintendent. And it was overwhelming.
Right.
The amazing job that, these folks did, and stuff. So definitely one thing we like to mention is everything that we do, whatever policies we're doing to preserve the work so that we don't get cut off this time.
Right.
That we can continue this work is we also send it to the rest of our brothers and sisters around the nation and also to the islands so that they can push on their end as well,
Right.
because now, these things are in place for us. And so I don't know if Tino, or Anna wants to speak on
We're going to
that.
move on to like the Pacific Islander, the PICD. So I think it's also really important that we talk about that, right? Because, when these conversations start happening, we could go all night, right? We could keep talking and just keep, chatting about this. But I think it's important to talk about the FOSSI because when one of the audience members mentioned about education, right, and where it's at. And how it is important to have us in those spaces representing folks. And we've had the privilege and honor to be working with this particular report that we're presenting, and just to look at the benchmarks and the data and how people are really making a difference around, making the superintendent as well as others aware of where we're at. I know that. Most recently, the Pacific Cultural Island, the district, is really important to at least briefly mention, and what the impact that has already had on the community. And then we're going to turn to a final question, which is going back to what one of the audience members asked about the future and where do we see it's going. So I don't know, Tino, you want to talk or Anna about the Pacific Islander Cultural District, or go ahead. Tino, go ahead.
For the Pacific Islander Cultural District, I know is at the time, Gaynor, how many cultural districts were there before us?
9.
Nine.
Right.
So we were the 10th, right? So we were the 10th Pacific Islander Cultural District in 2022. Again, this was during COVID, so we couldn't really meet as a whole. So we're actually doing different meetings, like a lot of meetings virtual. Then you had to hop on virtual meetings with our supervisor Samoan Walton, and then just making sure that we were hitting all the criteria requirements for the Pacific Islander Cultural District, and then also the different hearings that we would have to go to for the Board of Supervisors. Those were long nights to make sure that we establish a cultural district, but also approved to be a cultural district within San Francisco. And there was a lot at the time. In the beginning, I was still learning, and me and Gaynor, we were having a lot of discussions, even with Dr. Patsy, Uncle John, and even PJ. I think PJ was with us too, Brother PJ. And then a lot of more folks would start coming. So again, like that's how it kind of started in the beginning. And I know, again, they was like, how did y'all do that during COVID? I was like, well, that was something that we wanted to make sure that we implemented within the city to make sure that we have a staple within Visitation Valley Sunnydale, but also where a majority of our Pacific Islander families reside in Visitation Valley Sunnydale and HP or Bayview, Hunters Point. So that was one of the main pushes that we seen was we didn't have nothing for us. So we wanted to make sure that there was some part in San Francisco where we're all at that we continue to build that cultural district. And, by 2022, again, like you stated earlier, we got approved by the Board of Supervisors unanimously, and we want to continue to build the community within Visitation Valley Sunnydale. Even though we kind of are, I think Gaynor can speak on that on the cross districts that we do kind of touch.
Yeah, so a little bit of where what it covers, and I think it opened in 2025. Am I correct?
So again, going back, the idea of the cultural district, I have been privileged to be involved when we were creating the Latino cultural district, and being part of that process, which is right here on this corridor. that we are sitting at today, you know, all the other cultures started to build. And so learning the whole process, and then we were already in the movements that, you know, the PI movement that we were organically creating, you know, I said, let me see if our community, you know, we have to, you know, also have this. So, you know, coming to our community, you know, a lot of folks, we've never seen this before, you know, and so folks are like, whatever she's talking about. And, you know, a lot of folks are not political in our community. So I'm like, we can do this, you
Right,
know,
right.
but this is what it'll bring. It'll bring equity. It'll bring, they're like, yeah, okay, whatever that means. And so I love, like, you know, our folks, you know, we were meeting, building that out. So with our culture district, a lot of people ask why Viz Valley. To be honest, there was a few, like Bayview, which also has a concentration of Pacific Islanders, you know, historically, you know, but then our African American brothers and sisters have that, and they says, look, just grab Viz Valley, you know, and don't worry about Bayview. We got each other, right? And I says, man, but the part of getting a culture district, you have to, you know, you have to prove or you have to justify why
Right,
that area, you know, why is it so significant? What is the history? And the challenges with us is, you know, we're an oratory, whatever, if that's a word.
You tell
you
the
know,
story, right? You're an
community,
orator.
right? Like many things are not written in books,
Right.
you know, or documented like that. So we had to go to our elders. We started collecting, you know, stories and stuff. Did that process, and then I'm gonna be very honest and transparent. I sort of got you know, a big backlash from certain communities, even internally. So when they said, City Hall says, Gaynor, what area, you know, circle the area that you guys want. And I think, you know, on Ursula, I said, you know what, I'm mad. So I just circled a whole, like, you know, whatchamacallit, and then found justifiable reasons why, you know, each area. So we are the first cultural district to have, you know, cross three borders. So District 9, because a little bit of San Bruno Avenue. We have all of Viz Valley, and then which is D10, and then District 11, which is part of Excelsior. So Moscow, Mansell, on down, and we also are the biggest
Right.
cultural district so far. And I'm thinking,
And just to add to why I like District 11, Cracker Amazon Park. So I don't know, you know, that's one of the main parks that we always had, Samoan Flag Day. So that was big. Even me growing up in the 90s, a lot of the anthems, I remember hearing the LBC. That was my first time I heard that song
Right.
in the parking lot. So that became an anthem for us.
that was me
after
bumping
that.
it. Sorry.
I think
Well,
that
we
was,
put SFC in there.
yeah,
Right.
or yeah, SFC. That's what we changed it to. But you know, and that was one of the reasons why, because that was really integral for us as Pacifica community. That was like our park. That was a park
Right,
that we
right.
kind of claimed within San Francisco. And it was the biggest park, but we didn't really have that much. But you know, it still continued to upgrade. But I think, you know, just that was a staple within our Pacifica
Right.
community, understanding how important that piece was for us.
So I think when I think about all the accomplishments, and I think reaching to this point where we're at, acquiring the Pacific Islander Cultural District, you know, when I think of the Samoan Pacific Islander community, I see it all over San Francisco. So I think it's everywhere and it's represented everywhere. You know, we're getting close to closing, and so I wanted to just
Can I just add the reason why? Also, because there's a lot of businesses.
right.
historically
There were a
that-
lot of businesses out
Yeah.
there. That's correct. So we're getting close to closing, so I want to ask just a final question, a final thought. If you can give it a 1-minute answer, please.
1 minute.
A 1
Just
minute,
give it to Gaynor.
yeah. But it just
Stop asking questions.
yeah. So here's if you were to think of a next step, what would be the priority for the community? What is the next step or a next vision that you have? Let's start with Tino, and let's start with Ana. Ana.
I mean, we've been moving in waves, like just simultaneously. But I think for the future, ooh, I want to give out our secrets though.
What's the next step that you see?
What I see? I see the P. I see our folks thriving.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
You know?
Just even owning our own space as a community, having a community center that's just for Pacifica. Not just for Pacifica, but just, to let our people know that there is something special that they have in San Francisco. And then we want to continue to build that for future generations and also continue to build up this next generation to continue to take over the work that we're doing and also what our ancestors did in the past for us. And we're standing on their shoulders to continue this work. And we want to, give them praise and all the accolades too. And also, like what Sister Gaynor and Anna said, is God, just keeping God as our foundation. We got God with us. We can do anything. And that's one thing that I see our future is we're going to have our own building. We don't know what we're going to name it, but I know we're going to have our own building because I know for sure SCDC is one thing is we're getting renovations, but now we want to make sure that we have a whole building that we can own.
Oh, yeah.
And call our own.
We got you.
We're going to own that.
Gaynor, a 1 minute kind of close out here.
What was the question? The future. What about the future?
What do you see? The next step?
I see, a community like our Vasa community finally being accepted as a voice that matters.
Mm-hmm.
I also see that equity is going to look real and be reality for us as well. I love to see us thriving, just like, Sister Anna said and Brother Tino, ownership, businesses, owning homes, getting 6-figure jobs for the amazing work that all of our Pacific Islander folks have been doing that, they really deserve to. The biggest thing I would love to see is that all the opportunities we didn't have, that our next generation and stuff have, not just within our Pacifica community, because if you guys know us, we work very diverse. And so for all of our babies and all of our communities of culture, not color, but culture, thriving together and just living in harmony. And when people say, well, what do you wish for the future? That violence stops, that people get healing, that, there's services and resources that are available and they all have access to, and stuff. So that's what I see for the future.
Well, let's give all of our panelists a big hand. I want to, first of all, it's been an honor to be in this community, to represent and to be in conversation with this revolutionary, forward-moving community. I'm really privileged and honored. We want to thank Caresen, San Francisco. We want to thank Kevin Rios, who's back there in the back, the marketing and community coordinator for Caresen, the RAMA partners, which are Instituto Familiar, Horizons, United Players, the Pacific Islander Resource Hut, the FA Samoa Initiative, Ursula Siataga, our co-producer, Darren De Leon over there, right there. You want to give Darren a hand. All the Brava staff, Dr. Estela Garcia and Roban San Miguel, all the donors that contribute to the RAMA Blueprints podcast. And last but not least, we want to thank the California Arts Council for funding this series through their Project Impact grant. And also, we just are really grateful for the community for this opportunity. And remember, our tagline is, to listen is to heal. All power to the people. Right on. Thank you. Stand up. Thank you, guys.
La verdad